Once upon a time, there lived a lovely, cute little girl. Every day, she wore a red hooded cape. Everyone liked to call her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother asked her to take cake and wine to her grandmother. The road to her grandmother's house was quite long. She would have to leave the village and go through the forest. Little Red Riding Hood had just walked into the forest when she ran into a wolf. "Little girl, what is your name? Where are you going?" asked the wolf. "My name is Little Red Riding Hood. I'm going to my grandmother's house. She is sick, so I am bringing her a cake and some fruit," responded Little Red Riding Hood very politely. She didn't know that this wolf was very bad. The wolf was delighted. He thought, "I need to figure out how to eat both of them." So the wolf said to Little Red Riding Hood, "Look at these beautiful flowers, and the little birds are singing. You should enjoy nature." So Little Red Riding Hood walked off the main path and went down into the forest to pick flowers. The wolf hurried off to Grandmother's house and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" asked Grandmother. "Grandmother, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf in a high-pitched voice. "I've brought you a cake and some fruit." "The door isn't locked. You may let yourself in," said Grandmother. "I'm too weak to get up." The wolf opened the door and rushed over to Grandmother's bed. When Grandmother saw that it was a wolf, she was so frightened that her hair stood on end. The wolf opened his huge mouth and swallowed Grandmother in one gulp. Then he dressed up like Grandmother, got in her bed, and waited for Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood picked flowers until she couldn't hold any more. Finally, she remembered Grandmother. She hurried off to Grandmother's home. Little Red Riding Hood saw that the door was open, and Grandmother was in bed with her hat low over her face. Grandmother looked very strange. "Grandmother," Little Red Riding Hood said, "what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with. But what big eyes you have!" said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with. Grandmother, what a big mouth you have! All the better to eat you with." When the wolf finished speaking, he leaped up from the bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. The wolf was now full, So he lied down on the bed and went to sleep. His snoring caught the attention of a hunter walking by in front of the house. The hunter went inside and discovered the wolf lying in bed. "You big bad wolf, I've been looking everywhere for you. Who'd have guessed I'd find you here?" He was just about to open fire when he suddenly thought, "Perhaps Grandmother is still alive." While the wolf was still fast asleep, the hunter picked up a pair of scissors and cut open his belly. Out jumped Little Red Riding Hood and Grandmother too. The hunter skinned the wolf and brought the skin home. Little Red Riding Hood and Grandmother had some cake. They were feeling much better. A few days later, Little Red Riding Hood was bringing some fruit to her grandmother when she ran into a wolf again. This time, Little Red Riding Hood was prepared. She didn't speak to the wolf at all. She ran all the way to Grandmother's house. The wolf, seeing that Little Red Riding Hood paid him no regard, was so infuriated that he began howling. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at Grandmother's house, she told her, "I ran into a wolf again. The way he looked at me was so scary. What if he follows me here?" Grandmother said, "I will tightly shut the door and not let him inside." Before long, the wolf arrived at Grandmother's house. He banged on the door wildly, but the door was very sturdy. He used all his strength, but could not knock down the door. He walked around the house 3 times before he finally jumped on the roof. He was going to wait until it was dark. Then, when Little Red Riding Hood left to go home, he would eat her. Grandmother knew what the wolf was up to. She remembered that there was a water trough in front of the house. So she said to Little Red Riding Hood, "This morning I boiled some sausages. Get some of the water I boiled them in and pour it into the trough." Little Red Riding Hood listened to her grandmother and got a lot of water and filled up the trough with it. The smell of sausages began drifting by the wolf's nose. When the gluttonous wolf stretched out his neck to get a whiff of it, he accidentally lost his balance, fell into the stone trough, and drowned. Little Red Riding Hood happily returned home. From then on, never again did any wolf try to do anything bad to her.